Good morning, everybody. This is August 14th, 2020, and this is episode 79.
Oof.
Next one will be 80. Octogenarians.
Octogenarians. I'm really excited about 100. I'm kind of looking forward to 100. I'm
Yes.
hoping this time our fans throw us a big party.
I mean, not many people make it to 100.
No.
So we deserve.
Not at all. We deserve something.
I think so.
So hey, Kathleen. Good morning. So I think that you need to show that cool video.
Oh, well, we're trying to think of like ways to up our game.
Yeah.
This is a little custom video. It's very low quality and grainy, and it's got a watermark on it, but it's just a foretaste of what's possible here. Watch this. I mean, that's like, if before people were like, I don't know about these guys. After that, they'll be like,
whoa,
are these the ones to guide us in the truth? Are these the ones I've been waiting for? It's all about production value. That's why Fox News has so much, so many people in their thrall. It's not because of conspiracy theories and appealing to their id. It has to do with production values.
Yeah.
People don't really know that, but it's true.
All right. See. So already the fandom is pouring in. Promises of more donations. Yes, thank you, Kathleen, for your donation.
That's all because of that little intro.
No, that's what I'm saying. That little yeah.
And if we actually uploaded a high-res professional version of that,
with our own special music and everything,
millions would come pouring in, and then we'd be on the Biden-Harris administration as the co-ministers of propaganda and truth.
There we go.
Yes.
Which is what our topic is today.
Truth.
Right? So my name is Daniel Wolpert. I direct MICA, the Minnesota Institute of Contemplation and Healing.
I'm Mark Van Steenwyk. I'm the director for the Center for Prophetic Imagination and video editor extraordinaire.
Yes, tech guru, transmission tech guru.
I'm the transmitter.
The transmitter of the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first of all, we should just let everybody know that we're taking a week off. Now that you've seen that video, we're going away for a week. We're next week is another summer break time. So we will not be back till Monday, the 24th.
Sorry.
At which point, who knows what our world would be like. So we thought that to end this run as we're entering into this little time of spaciousness, we talk about this business of erosion of the truth, which lots of people have been talking about a lot for the last several years, but I would say is certainly accelerating. And immediately once Senator Harris is on the ticket, you've got the new birther conspiracy, you've got all manners of conspiracies, and it really has gone mainstream, right? So just this morning, somebody was telling me this story. They went up to their family cabin up here in northern Minnesota a couple weeks ago. This guy mows the lawn, seems like very normal guy, doesn't seem like an extremist Trumper or anything like that. They start talking about the COVID vaccine, and immediately this guy starts into, they're going to put microchips in the vaccine. You're going to be microchipped. And this person was just blown away, like and then another story, this person's going to look for an apartment, and on the one hand, the woman who's showing the apartment doesn't want to wear a mask, doesn't seem concerned about the pandemic. but has her entire house wrapped in something to protect from 5G and EMF, which is going to control the world. And these are just two sort of random encounters with, again, people who aren't carrying a major psychiatric diagnosis. But it very much seems that we're entering into this serious period of kind of collective insanity. So we thought we'd talk about that for a little bit.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's not like none of these things, it's not like any of these things individually are new. Right. It's just this climate we're in, which, you could point to all sorts of things, and everyone does. Like, is it just a factor of late stage consumer capitalism? Yeah. Is it about pluralism and how there's so many competing narratives that it becomes easier for everyone to enter into their own unique narratives? Yeah. Is it social media? Mm-hmm. It's all these things. Is it the decline of traditional institutions like my grandparents would have thought about themselves as Presbyterians their whole lives, and now everyone just bumps around? Yeah. It's all these things are conspiring for this shit soup that we currently swim in.
This holy moment.
This holy moment. What do you do about that? Like, it's hard because, again, this isn't because individuals are somehow dumber than they used to be, or individuals are badder than they used to be. It's a climate with a set of structures and new realities that we did not, as a race, we did not, or a species, we did not evolve for this sort of reality. So, like, I don't think it's easy for people to know what truth is, and I don't feel like I want to blame them for it. But at the same time, we can't just let it sit the way it is and not do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, and historically, these things happen, and they usually happen around times of great social change and upheaval, technological social change. I mean, if you look at what happened around the time that the printing press was developed, suddenly you had this explosion of pamphlets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at some of these from the early times after the printing press, I mean, some of them are just hilarious. And they do have all of these wild kind of conspiracy theories, comments about politicians and rulers. And it was sort of this orgy of just like, oh my gosh, anybody can make a pamphlet. And during the times of other pandemics, right, you have huge increase in superstition and new religions appearing. So human beings do kind of have this meltdown phenomenon that happens every once in a while. And that our interior meltdown correlates with the exterior meltdown. And it's pretty wild to be in the middle of. And so we've got some comments coming in.
First, perhaps the most important comment. 4K ultra high definition version would have you with your own cable network. That's what we're going for.
Okay. That's what I'm looking forward to, that moment.
Yeah. Julia writes, just read a line about fascism being capitalism's safety valve, and a shiver rippled up my spine. If we're truly in end stage capitalism, it makes sense that fascism is breaking out around the earth.
Yep.
It's also like, I mean, we're in an apocalyptic time, not just because of the pandemic, but climate change. So this isn't that different than circa 1000 AD, where they thought the end was nigh. You had this kind of growth of new religious movements and fear.
Yeah.
I mean, fear is driving a lot of this too. It's like, well, if the things we know and do now aren't working, let's come up with new things to know and do.
Right.
And so I feel like this end of late stage capitalism is like this fearful reaction to, like, we need to go back to the good old days of the way things were, with white people in power, and everything made sense somehow.
Yeah. And it is funny, the irrationalities and how it becomes unhinged, right? So it's hilarious to me that people are worried about being microchipped by a vaccine when we're all carrying around these and we are being followed. Our every movement is being tracked. It's like, we don't need to be injected with anything. We're willfully carrying them around in our pocket all the time. And so it's those sorts of irrational moves that that result from a lot of the confusion that we're experiencing.
Gregory is, I'm assuming this is a book, Gregory, On Bullshit by Harry Frankfurt.
Yeah.
It
sounds great.
Aptly
great title.
So he's right. The ruling class is taking advantage of our disassociation mechanism. Part of the sad reality is that people literally can't take in truth and in multiple views. They lack emotional and body capacity because they're overwhelmed. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, our world is built for being overwhelmed in ways that we couldn't have done outside of times of war. I don't think there's been a society that's been as overwhelmed as modern societies and you're right. There's no way for it not to contribute to disassociation, and the powerful are taking advantage. I just saw this thing about how much since March, billionaires have increased their wealth, and Elon Musk has almost doubled his billions during this time. Mark Zuckerberg almost doubled. And then the other ones, it's just, they've only increased by 50% from like only added a mere 20 billion to their wealth. And that's a great example of how people are benefiting from our fear and scatteredness and our disassociation.
From the confusion.
Yeah.
And I think that when we are overwhelmed from a survival point of view, right? So you think about how much people were overwhelmed before the pandemic. And that was when they knew where they could send their kids to school, and they understood how to do their jobs and where their office was and all of that, and they were still overwhelmed. And now you increase that by a factor of 2 or 3 or 4 or 10. And at a certain point, your mind just sort of goes blank. And then any interesting, weird, distracting thing that comes along, it's like, great, I'll go with that. Why not?
Just another spin here, and so just for full disclosure, I take pills for anxiety and depression, right? So I'm not against medication, but there's increasing numbers of studies coming out saying, this latest one I saw was from anthropologists saying, we think that anxiety and depression are defense mechanisms built into our their responses to external traumas more than they are just brain imbalances. The brain imbalance is is a result. So like people are more and more saying, look, I think these things aren't maladaptions. They're actually positive adaptions that worked in the past that don't work.
That's not actually a very new thing. I mean,
no, it's just increasingly people are saying this medical model thing, we need to really move past this.
No, the medical model of mental illness is not really very helpful. That could be a whole episode that we could do. But so let's keep rolling. We've got people fired up.
CK writes, there has been short evolutionary jumps in the human mind and how we perceive reality. Misinformation and disinformation has created more and more inabilities to understand what the truth is.
I mean, it's interesting that the whole question of whether or not our mind has evolved much in the last 10,000 years. I mean, I think we could have a much longer conversation about that. I think there tends to be this sort of linear sense of evolution, and we're kind of smarter than ancient peoples, or more aware, or more something. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of evidence for that, actually, but I think that there's certainly, if you look at the human mind in terms of the two tracks of habitual activity and awareness, and that in the normal state, awareness is very low, habitual activity is very high, and so then you could track times and periods when there seems to be more or less awareness, and that I would say it's kind of this more bumpy historical path. And when there's more threat and more fear, so fear drives us more into that habitual reactivity state. So when there's more threat and more fear and more confusion, there's going to be less awareness. And at that point, we appear to be far less evolved.
Paraphrasing Nietzsche from Zarathustra, there is no truth. There is only my truth and your truth. I mean, this brings up the whole philosophical angle. A lot of people will just want to just blame postmodernism. And this is one of my big critiques of that. It's like, I don't think people are sitting around absorbing postmodernity as a philosophical category and then all of a sudden are now like, you know what? I think, unlike my parents who did not have postmodernism, I'm going to become susceptible to deception because of postmodernity as a philosophical set of constructs. Like, that's not how it works. Trickle down academia doesn't work. It's not like these people are sitting around, like
reading
anyways.
French philosophers going, now I will be subjective all the time.
Yeah, in between watching episodes of Mad Men, I've been reading some Foucault, and it's not.
Yeah. No, I think that in a sense, this post-modernity, everything is subjective thing is not particularly new at all. It maybe feels a little new because we went through this modern phase where white men in academia told everybody they were being objective, and that got bought into by a lot of folks. But yeah, I mean, this incredibly pluralistic view of truth, that's sort of been the norm throughout human history, right? I mean, you think about the Mediterranean basin around the time of Jesus, and there were literally hundreds of religions, and every block you could find a new temple to a different set of gods and a different set of practices. And there was this constant arguing and foment over, what was true and what was not true. And I think that's been pretty normal throughout most of history.
Just to get back, because I went on a little rabbit trail there, but one of the things I like about Nietzsche, and there's a lot of things I don't like, is he really brought in this category of power into philosophical discourse in a way that wasn't as common. And so it made, to me, I tend to have a fairly critical or Marxist way of thinking of things. And this is kind of, in some ways, the silver lining. We don't have dominant truth tellers the same way as we used to. So the fact that we're all confused means that kind of this set of assumptions that maybe we had in our Christendom are fractured. So there's the positive spin is maybe one of the good reasons to explain why things are confusing is that the hegemony of truth has been fractured. Mm-hmm. And so there's more opportunities for other truths to come in that are maybe more accurate. Now, the problem is we're seeing these sorts of reactions, counter reactions happening all the time, and they create a fever pitch. But Nietzsche's point about the shifting of power, that there's no truth, there's my truth and your truth. There's a positive side to that. Kathleen, the search for truth has defined my life. As a kid, I argued with church leaders who pushed a literal interpretation of the Bible. If you can convince a child to believe in virgin births and physical resurrection, what else will she not accept as truth? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the virgin births and physical resurrection were kind of fun, nifty ideas compared to some of these other ones that a lot of us were told about, like, don't touch yourself there, or you're going to go to hell, or there's something intrinsically wrong with gay people. A lot of those sorts of truths. Yeah. Getting to series. Well, I actually jumped on. There's a lot of comments coming in. Right? Plus, we live in a culture that make money out of war, so many have incentives to keep people overactivated and disassociated at the same time. That's true. This, I think, this is a feature of our system. Rahul Deep, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. The irrationality you talk about just makes the neoliberal argument palatable. I'm wondering if
not
you say,
not 100% sure what you mean.
yeah.
He's got a few more comments.
Yeah. So fascism is capitalism's pressure valve. Corporate agents are putting their hope in whom? I think they kind of are adapting. They'll adapt to whoever, but yeah.
Well, and again, I my guess is that from the perspective of monster corporations that are way bigger than most countries at this point, fascism in a particular place doesn't seem like that big of a problem if they still have access to the market. I don't think we fully grasped the size of the transnational global economy. And I think that for a lot of these folks, a nation state is just a line item on their balance sheet. And so, if fascism in country A will keep that country more in line so that they can sell more stuff in that country, that they don't care.
I do tend to think that there's an incentive for status quo in larger countries like the United States. So I tend to think business leaders have been nervous about Trump because he could destabilize things, and destabilization of a large market can be bad, and you'd have to have creative responses. So I can see why they pitch more towards the center, but they definitely don't. None of them seem really happy about anything left of the American center, which the American center is still pretty far right. Exactly right about anxiety and depression. I also suffer, but they are the keys to my humanity. There's something very deeply human about anxiety and depression, and if I pay attention to it, it actually helps me a lot to understand what's going on in a way that people that maybe don't suffer from anxiety and depression don't have the ability to really notice. Adam writes, while suffering the onslaught of distractions and terrible news, we're also dealing with decades of education and socialization that has de-emphasized critical thinking and discernment, as you talked about. Another parallel is how our memory and imagination have been under attack and stripped down, which all makes us susceptible to manipulation.
Right. Oof. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great summary.
Yeah. Trickle down. AC, well, great concept. What's the AC stand for in this? I can't remember.
You talked about trickle down philosophy.
Yeah, so maybe it's okay. Dan, I've been sleeping on the show. Okay, it's all you can find them all. They're all on the.
You can find them all. You can now listen for hours and hours.
If we're going to be gone for a week, that's a perfect opportunity for you to watch every single episode and just nourish yourself. With our truth.
Reruns. You could watch reruns all week next week.
Yeah. Kennedy quote this week for our Derrida reading group.
There you go. Right, exactly.
Yes, we know how much of a huge influence Derrida has been on Sean Hannity. Okay, Gus has got a comment here. Yeah. My favorite example of completely bonkers conspiracy theory was a guy on Twitter claiming, quote, the California Democratic Party panders to the Californian Homeless Union.
It's just
that big homeless lobby, that just.
Yes, the big homeless lobby.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Okay, so this is a real thing. A robot bird just came and fluttered outside the window here and watched me.
They're always watching you, Dan.
Yeah, it did.
Because we're
tuning into the show. We're on to something.
Nice. Gus writes, because instead of exerting power to get housing, they're controlling the party from their tents. That way they can invest all their money on political manipulations instead of things like housing and food, Yeah. Catherine writes, I once wrote in hindsight, terrible anti-postmodernist paper about why murder mystery books and shows were so comforting because they propose a single true narrative. There is still something powerful about that desire, at least. And maybe that is why people love conspiracy theories and cults that claim to explain everything. I think that's exactly right. There's a comfort in being able to name what's fucked up in one simple narrative.
Well, and the other thing that I was thinking about this the other day, is that in some ways, all of this really got rolling with Watergate and the Pentagon Papers, right? And there was this huge uh, kind of outpouring of angst, but also I think an empowerment when this came out. And it's like, oh, the government, it was up to all these terrible things, and now we know, like we know these secrets. And so now this is the ongoing theme. I mean, I had somebody say this to me the other day, there's stuff going on that the government isn't telling you, which of course on a certain level is true. But I realized, like, yeah, so since that happened, this has now been this accelerating idea that we are always out seeking for, what is the big scoop, right? What's the Pentagon paper kind of scoop? And so people are finding that all over the place, even if they have to make it up.
Well, and before then, there was kind of like this established, kind of this sanctioned myth building around Red Scare stuff, which was kind of like this sort of top down. Like, we've had conspiracy theories from the powerful for a long time, and this is like now a counter reaction, and does kind of create this. We haven't really talked much about like this feedback loop that happens, so this QAnon stuff, which we're going to have to talk about now because it's so ridiculous and it's so forceful. Like, a lot of us on to the left of that at varying degrees are like jumping on it and critiquing it, and then it kind of gives it its own power. And so it creates this challenge. Like, I don't believe that the best way to deal with abuse is to ignore it. So, like, sometimes we can't just ignore things. Conspiracy theories are more ignorable, but at a certain point, if it becomes a dominant theory, you have to engage it maybe somehow. And the question is, how do you engage it in a way that doesn't give it undue power?
Yeah, which is really hard.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to do that well at all. Faith writes, I noticed that many are experiencing trauma at the constant use of fear in media. Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, what I think is great is that a lot of folks are recognizing that and saying, okay, I can't do Facebook, or I can't do this. And I think that's really important, that we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to figure out, because that's one of the things that I at least want to mention and give a nod to before we're done, is that in these kinds of times, what also starts to emerge are powerful, but usually very small, counter narratives, radical communities, counter cultures of hope. And those also just begin to build themselves and say, all right, look, we're surrounded by this mass insanity that we can't do anything about. I mean, that's the other part of it, is we can't stop this. It's very clear we can't stop Trump from doing his thing. We can't stop, these endless conspiracy theories on the internet happening over and over again. So maybe what we need to do, whoever the we is disconnect from some of that, create enough of a space for some kind of healthy community of practice. And, a lot of those weather the storm, and some of them don't. And in many ways, that's the most that we have any kind of power over.
Ed writes, I heard that Trump is not a fascist because of his commitment to the market. State fascism takes over the market, right? Hitler didn't really have to take over his market much. There was some state control of the economy to a small point, but not like, and we kind of have some of that now already. So a lot of those big business people were just like, we're just working with Hitler because why not? So it's not this idea of a centrally designed economy being a fascist thing is kind of like overplayed.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that, fascism is not going to always look the same in every historical moment, right? I mean, Germany's economy was in complete tatters and non-functional when Hitler began to take over. That's not the case in the United States. So yeah, what fascism looks like in a country that has a very significant economy, might be different. And I mean, Trump is obsessed with power and himself. And so that sort of unity of power and control is very much what is a part of fascism. And whether there's a market economy version of fascism or a broke economy version of fascism, I think that power, the centralized power piece is what's key.
Yeah, so we might not be fitting a textbook definition, but if you have an authoritarian who uses white nationalism as a leverage, I mean, I don't care if it's really technically fascism at that point, if it's bad. The thing that, we could have a whole conversation.
Yeah.
That'd be good to talk about what is fascism and does this fit that?
Right.
Might be a good topic sometime. There's the thunder.
Hear the thunder.
You're up in northwest Minnesota. And
northwest Minnesota, big thunderstorms. Made a cool video of lightning last night. You can see on my Facebook page. All right, we got to roll on through.
We also developed this culture of everyone gets to be right, which has led us to this moment. When a person is made to apologize for some sort of infraction, everyone is made to apologize. We've also made everyone's opinions more important than what's accurate, right, or true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Julia, finger snaps on keys to compassion, to a ruled. Lol Gus. Gus is really good for a good lol, and he's like just lurking out there, coming up with funny things to say, but insightful at the same time. Max writes, what is true, as in fact, can often be more important in our education systems than who is telling the story, who has the voice, who doesn't, etc. I think knowing the truth often takes precedence over critical literacy, and the pedestal of a certain pursuit of truth, I think, leads to an erosion of truth.
Right.
That's deep.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. And I guess the immediate thing that I think of when I hear that is that, part of what is true is the who of who's talking about the truth. And that's a piece of it. It's an important piece of the reflective puzzle.
It's almost comical, too, that we were taught to be so distrustful of everything but the status quo. Oh, my God. That's a whole. I mean, I feel like there's like 100 ideas that have come out of this episode for other episodes.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Gus writes, until you said that about Watergate, I never thought of this as similar to Christian Gnosticism and their secret truth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, we could do a whole thing about the New Age movement in relation to this, because this is a big, big part of what's going on now, very much connected to the anti-vaxxers and to a lot of these conspiracy theories. And New Ageism is very Gnostic, and it's all about these secret special truths, usually revealed by ancient beings who are 30,000 years old through a white housewife in Pasadena or some such thing.
Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I know. I've had so many conversations lately about some of these things. I still believe that 9/11 had government participation, but these conspiracies are getting way out of control. Yeah, I mean, the problem is there's plenty to be suspicious about. So you're right. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there were government participation. Like, it's hard to know how to speculate. And just the fact that we all kind of generally know the powerful aren't trustworthy. That's the other silver lining. Like, conspiracy theories are running amok because we know the powerful are full of crap. So that's another little silver lining. If we could get on the same page and work towards justice, it'd be great. Adam writes, I'd argue that what you're describing is a false pursuit of what's real rather than a pursuit of who's truth. The need to gather all the facts allows this abstract, never-ending process which could never collect all the facts so that people can be told what's real or not. It's what I think of as cultural or institutional gaslighting.
There's a lot of that goes on. All right, well, we're way over time, but we do have 2 votes for the New Age movement episode. So I think we'll have to. Yes. Oh yes. The New Age movement is the poster child for cultural appropriation. I've never met a Native American ritual I didn't like. This could be the motto of the New Age movement.
Yeah. We could, maybe we should do that after the break. Maybe our first one, because Dan and I'm sure we both have had some, like, it's not like we're just weird modernist, super hyper Christians who look at New Age from afar. Dan and I have both had some wonderful experiences with that and have been pretty close up front. And I'm pretty sure there's lots of people that would call both of us New Age. So that too.
My next book is super New Age.
Yeah, you should just do a little commercial for your next book.
Okay, yeah, it's called Creation's Wisdom. It's about spirituality and climate change, and looking at 5 energy theory and Christian spiritual practice. So there you go. I'm going to be excommunicated.
What a damned hippie you are.
I know. It's true. All right. Well, this is great. Awesome comments, man. I just love when they're going wild like this. You guys are all awesome. And you should take your week off.
I'm gonna be just soaking up the ayahuasca in a hippie van in South America.
Here's the preview for the New Age movement. Having lived in Boulder, Colorado for a number of years, which is ground zero. Mm-hmm. The rule is you always meet somebody who has met the person who's met an alien. Okay, it's always once removed. You never meet the person who met the alien. You met the person who met that person who met the alien.
It's like New Age 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Exactly.
2 degrees.
Exactly.
2 degrees of alien.
Yep.
Nice.
So, all right. Love y'all. It was great. Bye.
Bye, everybody.